Hey there. So, for those that know me, you know that I don't really like to be on camera, but at the same time, I know that there are millions of people out there like myself that are being triggered by everything that's going on in the big picture, right? So right now I want to be very clear about who I'm talking to right now because I'm not talking to the news anchors and I'm not talking to the politicians. I'm not talking to the people who are just now waking up, right? Because this is happening right next door, right? It's on the screens everywhere. And we're recognizing that in the United States it's 1 in 3 children. 1 in 3, right? And that's not all just happening up here. It's happening next door. So that's 1 in 3 children that you see are having these experiences, these very adult experiences at very young ages, right? So this video is for you. The ones who already knew, the ones that have lived it as I have, the ones who carried it around in silence, in families, right? That went to church, smiled, right? Took pictures, family photos so that everyone could see the smiles. And at the same time, these very unthinkable things are happening behind closed doors, right? When no one can see, right? So I see you, and this video is for us, right? Now, I know there's a big shock in the world right now around the elite and what they've been doing, but I need for you to hear something because this isn't happening just in the mansions and it's not happening just on private islands. It's not just happening to children of celebrities. It's happening in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our families. And the people protecting the predators, right? Who are they? Right? Because they're not the bodyguards or lawyers. They were our mothers. They were our aunts, right? Our siblings. The women who were supposed to be protecting us instead were protecting them. And we need to drink that in because that is why this keeps going on, right? Because nobody is stopping it. And why is that? Right? Why is that? There's a normalization in our culture around this insidious um, I want to say hijacking of this child's innocence and their spirit. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I stand and why I say this because I'm not speaking from a textbook. I am not speaking from a space where I've hung on to the news 24/7, right? I'm experiencing, I'm speaking from a place of personal experience and from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women that I have worked with throughout the years that have experienced these crimes, right? And all the brainwashing that goes with that. Because, right, in the end, they're still turning around and saying, am I making all this up? Right? Why is that? It's because of this network of silencing that goes on within these structures. Now, we have to also recognize that these things aren't happening in a vacuum for these children. So if they're living in a home where they're being beaten, they're being abused, berated, and that is being witnessed by people there's also a level of personal normalization for everything that's going on as well, right? Because if people are watching it happening and not reacting, not doing anything about it, that says a lot about the value with which others are putting on our well-being, right? Now, I can speak to this because I had 3 sexual abusers, and was beaten on a reg, and extremely, and death was on the table a few times. So that being said, like, I know intimately what it's like to live with a predator, right? With someone who has your life and breath in their hands, right? Um, what are you going to do about it, right? We are going to adapt, right? And we are going to figure out ways to stay alive and stay breathing, as you and I have, right? And I want us to think about the level of validation that's happening right now for all of us, even though we're still down here feeling like we don't have a voice, possibly in our current situations. I know I feel like that, right? I know that I still get silenced in many ways on what I should say, what I can't say, and right, by family, just everyone. So I think that at this point in time, right, we have to recognize who is holding the cards, because there are a lot of people that are letting all these pedophiles run around and do their thing without recognizing the wake that is left behind, right? Now, I'm going to tell you a little story, right? I have a family member, a once very dear family member, who was very judgmental around um, what happened to me. And the card on the table that was presented to me every time was around forgiveness, right? Why can't you forgive them? And recently, not very long ago, when my father finally admitted his indiscretions to this said brother, that he again brought this out. And I looked at him and I said, do you understand how many children these 3 individuals probably harmed while you were worried about me forgiving them? Right now, this person counsels human beings in in the setting of a church. So I just want to be clear about that, right? And in that, there was a level of acceptance around these behaviors, right? He wanted details around what happened so that he could create judgment around their guilt, right? And around their indiscretions. So if what I said didn't meet those standards, there was a valid invalidation, and I was unwilling to go there, right? It was already harmful enough. And at the same time, there are a lot of things that, as we all know, with people with C-PTSD and dissociation, that I still don't remember, right? I remember enough to know that I ended it all. And I remember enough to know who and what took advantage of me, but I don't need every incident and every detail. And I sure as heck don't need him to be my judge or juror, right? Around how these experiences affected me. And I know that that is ringing true for so many of you out there, right? That everyone has been invalidating you and your experiences and the way you handled them. I don't know how many times people have pushed me to heal things with my mother, right? While this same said mother looked me in the eye and said, I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship with my sister over you. Said sister pedophile's wife. Yes, yes, those words were said, right? There has to be a level of normalization for everyone involved to hear that and be okay with that and think that it's the victim's responsibility to fix that relationship, right? Now, I want us to be clear that the women in that circle, the wives, the relatives, the ones who were supposed to be keeping the children safe, they knew. They knew these things were going on, right? And some of them were observed, and some of them, facilitated it happening, right? And some of them just looked the other way, right? And, you know, these are the people that, in families are said, hey, walk wide circles around Uncle Joe over there. You know how he is. Well, BS on that. Come on. It's time for us to move into 2025, right? And we're living in a moment right now where some of the people who have always been protected because of their money and because of their power and because of their connections, they're finally being exposed. And I'm grateful for that. And I want every single one of them held accountable, right? But I need the conversation to go way deeper than that, because what happened at the top of that pyramid is the same thing that is happening at the bottom every day. 1 in 3 children are being sexually violated in the United States. Now, all of those violations did not happen by this 1%, right? No, they're happening next door, right? And I've talked to social workers, said, well, I only encountered that once in my entire career of being a school counselor. And I'm like, well, if it's 1 in 3 children, there are a lot of red flags being missed, right? There's a lot of normalization around these conversations, right? Because we have to recognize that it hasn't been that long since it was perfectly legal for old men to be with children, married children, marry multiples of children within some religions, right? And we have to recognize that it's been just in very recent years, like 2025, that some states are starting to put laws into effect that it's not okay to marry these children, right? Now, girls have been handed off to grown men for centuries, and the community calls that normal, right? Now, if this said child were molested or raped and got pregnant, then this said perpetrator has the legal right to marry her, right? He has the legal right to do that because it's, quote, his baby, right? And then this said child is sentenced to a lifetime of rape and abuse by her said perpetrator. You get where I'm going? This is our laws. This is real. Go look it up. The Missouri, the state I live in, was and always has been a destination state because for these said perpetrators, because of all these loopholes that were intentionally, right, embedded in our laws to facilitate these appetites, right? These are babies. I mean, come on, we're living a long time. If there is teen in the child's age, then she's too young for you. If you are 30, even, right, too young, right? She's still a teenager. Until she's not a teenager, right? That should be the designated line. That should be the designated line, right? We are living in 2025. And believe me, I was groomed. I hate that word, but yes, I was. And I was gaslighted and brainwashed and manipulated, right? To facilitate and be this beating post and this sexual toy for these grown adults, as were probably you. Many, many, many of you. Again, we're talking 1 in 3, right? So let's just be real, right? We can't be questioning whether this is happening anymore, right? We can't be questioning how deep and this insidious pyramid lies, right? We just have to figure out what we're going to do about it and how to protect the ones we love and how to pay attention, right? Because it's 1 in 3. And they're targeting the children who are lonely, who are neglected, right? Who are possibly in foster care, who they know things at home are bad, or they know that it's maybe already happened. They can sense it. Like they know. They know. And those are the kids that are targeted, right? Those are the kids who's already their identity is shattered and they have no self um, compass as far as truth because their truth is invalidated at every turn. Daddy walks out of the bedroom at night and gets up and wants this little girl to sit on his lap and be sweet and call her daddy after this, said horrific incident. That's how our kids are growing up. And we are responsible for that, right? We are responsible for that. And all we can do is link arms, join together, and understand that we're not alone. And understand that this is a point in time where our voices do really matter. And our experience is really important. Now, I want to be clear as well, because I've been working in this field for decades, right? Working with the women in the shelters and human trafficking and women who have been sexually violated from childhood out, right? And it's not always men in that wearing those shoes of perpetrator, right? Often the women can be enablers. They can be part of the system, right? That harms the children. They can be the actual pedophile as well, who are abusing their little boys and little girls too. Or, selling their children, for drug money. Or that is happening every day, all around us, right? And the denial I see right now, people who are still, right, still defending these abusers in spite of the actual visual proof, we need to wake them up. We have to wake them up, right? Otherwise, it's just going to rebuild again in a new format, right? We've got spiritual leaders who are like out there messing with children. And really, let's be clear, like some of the very most renowned, and I feel great sadness about many of them coming to light as being involved in all this. And the amount of people that were affected by that deviance, right? We have to start waking up to that. Just like that family member of mine had never thought past silencing me, right? For 30 years, it had never occurred to him one time that these pedophiles were hurting other people. What is the matter with us? Right? What is the matter with us? This said same family member said to me, right? If I take your story to be completely true, then that loud. Out loud, right? What does a person do with that? They do the same thing with that as they do with, the comments about, I'm not going to fight with you because I'm not going to lose my sister. Right? Same category. What do you do with that? It's a pretty strong line in the sand, right? And this is happening in homes the consequences of that. And what are we going to actually lose? Because we felt like we have lost so much. We felt like we have lost so much. We have lost our innocence, right? We have lost our ability to play, right? We have pushed into corners where we don't ever want to be or think about. And we've been judged time and again about how we choose to deal with that and how we choose to interact with the same said people that did the horrible things. Right? Right? I was interacting with this person who pressured me so badly to call my father on Father's Day. And I finally, in absolute frustration and anger, called and put it on speaker. And I put the phone in his lap and I said, there you go. I'm going to let you have 10 minutes listening to my father right now. And I did, right? And at the end of that, he said, I didn't know. And I said, well, you need to listen, right? You all need to listen. You all need to listen because that's the problem. That is the problem because we've been speaking all along and no one will listen, right? Instead, we're called liars, or we didn't remember it right, or we're making a mountain out of a molehill, or we're exaggerating, right? Our families have been doing that to us our whole lives, right? And they're supposed to be the people that you lean into. They're supposed to be the people that love you the most. My mother used to actually say the words to me, right? You know your daddy loves you best. What the hell? What the hell? Like, we just really need to recognize, right, how consciously unconscious it is. I've sat in rooms because my grandmother raised 52 foster kids. She is brilliant and she was a saint. And I sat in rooms where, childhood sexual abuse was being discussed in a way of horror. Well, I knew numerous family members sitting in that room had experienced similar experiences. And, like, how invalidating is that? Right? So I really want to invite everyone, right, that this resonates with, to link arms, right? You're not alone, right? You're not alone. And, I want you to know that if you're watching this and you live something like what I'm describing, your story is not too small just because your abuser wasn't famous. It's the same patterns. It's the same patterns, right? The little girl in the trailer park whose, dad is protected by the community, or the little boy who was, defended, right, at every reunion for 30 years, right? His pain is just as real. Our voices together are what the world needs to hear right now. Not just the big cases, but all of us, right? So I'm Cherie, and this is Cherie Unfiltered, and I'm not going anywhere. So if this hit home for you, please share it, comment, and let someone else who needs to hear it find it, because you're not alone in this. And now we have a place to speak out loud and link arms and like make a wave around gathering around healing and wholeness rather than our pain and suffering, right? Because we can heal this. Check out Quantum Therapeutics.